Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, an explosive controversy among conservatives here in the United States with an impact on the Republican Party and potentially American relations with Israel. Growing concerns of anti-Semitism on the right. We're going to look at how it started and what critics say needs to be done to fight back. President Donald Trump's tariffs going to the United States Supreme Court. Critics claiming the tariffs are illegal, but the president saying they're necessary to help the economy. Children today are growing up with artificial intelligence, but what can parents do to protect children so they use this technology correctly and learn to tell the difference between what's real and what's not? And it's been called the greatest discovery in Israel since the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're going to bring you a look at the Megiddo Mosaic on display now at the Museum of the Bible. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Thursday, the 6th of November, 2025. Going to begin this half hour with a dangerous trend in American politics. In recent years, anti-Semitism has been a serious problem on the left. Well, now the Republican Party is dealing with a growing issue of its own from some on the extreme right. The issue exploded in the national spotlight recently when a prominent podcaster hosted a well-known anti-Semite on his program. CBN's chief political analyst David Brody has the story.
Republican conservatives are facing a looming crisis. The evil of anti-Semitism has infiltrated the ranks.
In the last 6 months, I've seen more anti-Semitism on the right than I have in my entire life. This is a poison, and I believe we are facing an existential crisis in our party and in our country.
This time, it's not limited to podcaster Candace Owens spouting Jewish conspiracy theories. This past week, center stage belonged to this guy, Nick Fuentes, who has suggested perfidious Jews should be executed.
If you are against organized Jewry, you're on my team.
His social media videos are seen by millions, especially young men who champion the America First mantra. Recently, popular influencer Tucker Carlson gave Fuentes a huge platform on his show.
Nick Fuentes, thank you for doing this.
Instead of challenging Fuentes on past statements of denying the severity of the Holocaust and praising the evil Joseph Stalin, Carlson gave him a pass with virtually no pushback. Josh Hammer, who wrote the book Israel and Civilization, says Carlson is playing with fire because we live in an era when public institutions are losing trust, so we don't know exactly who and what to believe.
I think the American people have lost the ability in many ways to distinguish right from wrong, fact from fiction. And putting on my historian's cap, David, thinking back over the past few thousand years of Western civilizational history, there are historically been one people who most disproportionately are harmed when a society loses the ability to distinguish right from wrong, fact from fiction. That, unfortunately, is the Jewish people.
Hammer and other conservatives have watched with dismay as Carlson spends an inordinate amount of time focusing on Jews.
It is an actual deep, profound obsession, and a very unhealthy obsession at that.
His guests range from Holocaust deniers to those accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, and even suggesting Israel's spy agency is somehow involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Carlson also insulted millions of evangelicals during the Fuentes interview by calling Christian Zionist support for Israel a brain virus.
I dislike them more than anybody, because what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian.
Although he since apologized, the damage from the program remains. Liz Harrington is a former spokeswoman for President Trump.
When I listen to that Nick Fuentes interview, I hear two people that really don't seem very familiar with the Bible. Israel will always be attacked. It will always be a dividing line because it's central to God's plan for salvation for everyone. And you know who can't stand that? The devil.
That chaos played out further in conservative circles when the Heritage Foundation's president, Kevin Roberts, defended Carlson's interview with Fuentes.
The venomous coalition attacking him are sowing division. Their attempt to cancel him will fail.
Roberts later attempted to apologize, although it still left angry staffers and turmoil inside the conservative think tank. In the end, this creeping anti-Semitism on the far right could be a nightmare for the GOP, And if it's not dealt with quickly, Hammer predicts disaster.
That would be the death knell for the Republican Party as a politically salient political vehicle in America. The moment really does call for the leading men of the moment, folks like President Trump, folks like Vice President J.D. Vance, whoever else wants to rise to the challenge, who has the gravitas and the credibility to do so, to do the right thing.
Until then, the forecast will be for tough sledding and slippery roads ahead for a Republican president and Congress trying to hold on to power. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Turn now to a major legal case that could affect the United States economy. The Supreme Court is weighing in on the issue of tariffs as justices are examining whether the president has the right to use Emergency Powers Act to set the rates on tariffs. If the president loses the case, it could rattle his economic agenda. CBN Charlene Aaron has the story.
It's being called the most economically consequential case in decades, and it centers around a law giving the president power to regulate trade in response to an emergency. A majority of the justices, including several conservatives, expressed doubts over the president's use of emergency powers to impose tariffs.
Could the president impose a 50% tariff on gas-powered cars and auto parts to deal with the unusual and extraordinary threat from abroad of climate change?
It's very likely that can be done. Very likely.
I think that has to be the logic of your view.
Yeah, in other words, obviously this administration would say that's a hoax, it's not a real crisis, but...
I'm sure you would.
On CBN's Faith Nation, Brad Jacob, Associate Dean of Regent University's School of Law, explained the legal questions surrounding the issue.
Does the president have any power to set tariffs, which are taxes? And the Constitution is very clear that it is Congress that has the power to tax, not the president. And so there's a lot of different directions the court could do here.
The outcome has huge political implications for the president's trade policy and economic consequences for consumers and businesses. In April, the Trump administration declared an emergency over trade imbalances and the inflow of fentanyl, issuing tariffs on several countries, including China, Mexico, and Canada. Several states and a group of small business owners sued the administration over the tariffs.
For nearly 40 years, my family has built this business from the ground up. Today, reckless tariffs threaten everything we've achieved. Let's be clear, these tariffs aren't paid by foreign governments or companies. It's American businesses like mine and American consumers that are footing the bill.
On CBS's 60 Minutes, President Trump defended his actions, claiming tariffs will rejuvenate the U.S. economy.
Because of tariffs, we have the highest stock market we've ever had. Because of tariffs, 401ks at the highest level, and this is millions and millions of people that we've ever had, 401ks. I think it's the most important subject discussed by the Supreme Court in 100 years.
CBN News White House correspondent Kelly Wright.
Lower courts already said the tariffs were illegal but kept them in place. If the challengers win, the government could owe businesses billions in refunds. One of the justices then said that would be a mess.
Meanwhile, financial markets will be watching the outcome of the case, given how a potential ruling could impact the economy. The court is expected to hand down a decision by the end of June. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Coming up, children today are growing up with AI. We're going to hear how parents can help their children learn how to use AI properly and avoid some of the potential dangers and deception. We got the story for you when we come back. The AI revolution is here. Generation Alpha, those born since 2013, will be the first generation raised alongside artificial intelligence. Former CIA operations officer Adam Hardage is the author of the book, The Alpha Blueprint, Preparing the Next Generation for an AI Future. In this week's episode of The Global Lane, Hardage suggests parents can help their children to learn to use AI for good and to get discernment on what is real and what is not.
Question then that I fundamentally was starting to ask myself was, how do I guide my children in the way ahead? How do I teach them how to stay relevant? How do I do we go become Amish and move out to Pennsylvania? You know, it's like, what do you do? And so I looked at that and I said, well, I can't tell them honestly to go to college that it's going to be the secret ingredient to a happy life. You know, go get a job at a Fortune 500 company, work for 30 years, retire with a 401k. I think that system is dead and gone. And now you've got a system where everyone has access to PhD level of intelligence. It's so, how do you differentiate yourself? And that's really the core of everything that this book is about. And I started looking at it and saying, well, God wrote his operating code into us. God programmed our own internal engines and our own operating system, if you will. When we were given our literal DNA from God Almighty. And so the prevailing premise is, if every car on a NASCAR race is programmed the same, meaning they all have the same size engines, the same weight, the same tires, then the difference in who wins the race should come down to the individual inputs of the driver. In other words, the decision-making of the driver, the creativity of the driver, the integrity, the boldness, the courage, the persistence, the willingness to stay in the race, to push it a little bit. So that's really where I think we have to guide our children, is they need to build a firm foundation in family and faith before they start looking at any kind of technology. But their world absolutely will be ruled by technology. So it's not an optional thing for them to be a part of. Everybody's going to have to sort of bite that proverbial bullet, so to speak, and get into technology, but using it as a tool to enhance your God-given creativity and abilities, rather than something to just lean on where you become an unoriginal copy of a copy of a copy.
And I think the biggest problem many people face at the advent of this AI revolution is knowing what's real, what is not real. We have fake news, fake AI created photos, fake video. So what will that mean for Gen Alpha? Do they even understand the moral challenge that this presents to determining the truth?
If you look at the world of lies that our kids are inheriting and will be growing up in, that is the first thing that they must understand, is this is the fact, is the world will lie to you repeatedly and consistently. And so what they must have is a firm foundation in their faith and a firm understanding of who they are individually. And I think that is the key thing to keeping someone's sanity in any day and age, but especially in the world that we're going into, where you can't tell what is real and what is false, because by the time you can even scroll to the next social media post on Instagram, that algorithm could have already changed what you're about to see based on the very conversation you're having in your living room. So it's really frightening stuff, but it's also something that we have to be prepared to teach our children how to handle.
So if Gen Alpha rises to the challenge, what kind of leaders will we see? Where will they take us?
Well, I think if Gen Alpha rises to the challenge, which they have to, I think that they will thrive, not just survive in the coming age. And I mean, really what we're talking about is the ability for kids to grow up having spiritual discernment in the digital age. So, we're raising a generation that's bombarded by algorithms which are designed to influence their belief and behavior. Us as parents and believers, we need spiritual discernment more than ever, especially so that we can pass that along to our children and raise strong families and raise strong God-fearing kids.
Okay, it all comes down to morality and faith, does it not?
I think it really does. I think this is, the proverbial separating the wheat from the chaff. I think I don't know if we're end times. I'm not really that kind of a guy that would claim to know something like that. I'm certainly not enough of a theologian to claim expertise, but I will say the time is now, not 2 years from now, to get your house right and your family and your faith right.
Okay, the book is The Alpha Blueprint, Preparing the Next Generation for an AI Future. Adam Hardage, thanks for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Gary.
And once again, the title of Adam Hardage's book is The Alpha Blueprint, Preparing the Next Generation for an AI Future. You can find it wherever books are sold. Also on tonight's episode of The Global Lane, Veterans Day, a new film about U.S. Marines telling the story of their toughest battles in the Iraq War and how much of an impact young voters made in helping Democrats win key victories in this week's elections. Be sure to watch tonight on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, and it's available on YouTube. Still ahead, it's been called the greatest discovery in Israel since the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you can see it right now in our nation's capital. We're going to show you how the Museum of the Bible exhibit on the Megiddo Mosaic. We'll tell you more about that and bring you a look at this early Christian history back to life right after this. An historic discovery sheds light on the early church. The Megiddo Mosaic dates back nearly 2,000 years. Experts believe it decorated one of the earliest Christian worship sites in Israel. CBN News Washington correspondent Michelle London takes us to the Museum of the Bible to show us the foundation of the early church.
Here in the nation's capital, we're already seeing evidence of how this beautifully preserved 1,800-year-old Megiddo Mosaic is bringing the start of Christianity back to life.
We now have rediscovered it and can witness Christianity so far back.
Behind each of these original artifacts lies a powerful story reaching across generations.
It's kind of crazy, and how they just finally discovered it, which is pretty significant, I think.
From teenagers to history teachers.
This exhibit, for sure, has been my favorite part.
We saw an eagerness to learn.
What we teach and something that is an artifact, something that is real, and something that most importantly is interesting, is really profound for students.
When I heard about this mosaic and read the story behind it, I got the same kind of chills and the same kind of goosebumps.
Historians like the Museum of the Bible Scholars Initiative director, Dr. Bobby Duke, described the Megiddo Mosaic as the greatest discovery in Israel since the Dead Sea Scrolls. What's something people don't know about this exhibit or may not know?
I would say the question we get asked the most often, is it real? It does date back to the 3rd century, AD 230.
A period before Christianity became an official religion of the Roman Empire. The Megiddo Mosaic features a table used for communion and a design showing 2 fish, early symbols of Christianity, with handcrafted geometric patterns.
To make the designs that we see even around this flooring here, I mean, that takes hours and hours and hours.
The mosaic likely decorated one of the oldest Christian prayer halls in Megiddo, a city located in Canaan. In the 1940s, this site of ancient worship became buried under a newly maximum security prison, where it remained for 60 years. Then, in 2005, archaeologists accidentally rediscovered it.
They're wanting to do some construction. And whenever you do construction in Israel, you have to do a salvage archaeological dig to make sure that you're not constructing over something significant.
They carefully excavated the mosaic, hiding it securely in northern Israel, until flying it here for a first public appearance. Show us some of the exciting features, the inscriptions.
So the first one right here is dedicated to a man named Gaianus.
Historians say he was a Roman centurion who helped fund the mosaic floor and table, a rare show of unity between Romans and Christians. The second inscription describes some key women in early Christianity, while the third marks history.
The table is dedicated to the God Jesus Christ. Now, this phrase, God Jesus Christ, is in the 5th line of the inscription, and it is actually in a shortened form, so the letters that have the lines over them, it is actually a respectful way to write those words.
Dr. Duke believes these early writings are some of the first to show belief in the deity of Jesus, with this inscription from a Christian woman identified as a Keptis that reads, God Jesus Christ. The Megiddo Mosaic is one he hopes will open up a world of possibilities for future discoveries.
I think the thing that excites me the most is we never know what the next excavation is going to show and demonstrate. No one before 2005 would have ever dreamed we would have found something as beautiful and significant as this. So What's around the corner?
The Megiddo Mosaic exhibit runs through 2026 at the Museum of the Bible, and admission to it is free. Reporting in Washington, Michelle London, CBN News.
We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your day ahead. Please stay with us. Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I leave you with this thought of gratitude. God, thank you for saying no to things I thought were good. You knew they were not good for me. If you are truly my Father, I know you have the absolute right to be a parent. And moms and dads don't always say yes. They often say no, even to things that look good, because in the end, good isn't always God. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.